Questionable Ethics, written by Calix Winterridge, Chapter 13, Antimatter over Mind, Part 2. For some reason, I broke down into a crying mess, shoving my face into my sleeping bag fabric as tears came gushing from my eyes. I couldn't stop the tears, and I didn't want to stop. Since I was alone, I had the chance to actually cry my heart out, so I didn't care about that. I couldn't stop the tears. It felt so good to just cry, and yet, at the same time, it hurt. It hurt me on a much different level, not physically, but mentally. Marines don't cry, and I was a Marine. So, maybe the dream is right. I'm not who I was before. Maybe the old me is really gone, and that all this crying and feeling sorry for myself is the reason I can't go home. Adrian? A voice called out to me from beyond the tent flap. My eyes open up fully as I hastily try to dry my tears as I respond to the call, while trying to mask the fact I was just crying. Who's there? Autumn, is that you? I asked while attempting to clean my face up from the snot and tears that had befallen me. No, it's Rainshine. Adrian, I think we need to talk. The voice came. I froze up for a moment as my heart sank fast into my stomach, as things around me got quiet real fast. What did she want to talk about? Did I do something wrong? I finished cleaning myself up and throw on my BDU shirt as fast as I could before exiting the tent, crawling out into the morning sun. There, standing in front of my tent, was indeed Rainshine. She had a look of melancholy on her face. I also took notice of my sidearm that lays on its side, resting in the dirt in front of her, inches from her hoof, as if it landed there right as she got here. I glanced down at it, then back up to her, with an embarrassed smile. I would kneel down and pick it up. Hey, Rainshine, you're usually not up this early. How can I help you? I say, holstering the pistol on my drop leg holster. Rainshine would sigh and approach closer. Yes, that is correct. I am usually asleep during this early hour, any other day, but a situation has presented itself that I feel I need to address, and maybe even remedy, she would say, looking over her shoulder off into the woods. Oh, and, what's that? I say, straightening out my uniform while kneeling. She would turn back to me with a look of woe in her eyes. What she was trying to say was hard to voice. I could tell by how she swallowed before she spoke again. The reason I'm awake is because of a troubling report Autumn gave me yesterday in the late evening. A report troubling you, she said as she watched me stand up. I looked to her with my puffy, bloodshot eyes, while my heart sank even further. Oh, and what might that report be about? I asked, already knowing what kind of hole I had dug myself into by asking that. Rainshine took a heavy sigh as she spoke, attempting to calm down her tone of voice even further than before. Adrian, I know you know what I'm talking about. Please don't try to claim ignorance, she said as she glanced back at my tent for a moment. Seriously, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. I don't need any help, I say in return, as if to deflect her attempts to break into my mind. I never said anything about you needing help, she would respond quickly as I gritted my teeth beneath my lips. I turned back to her and stared into her eyes, my brows now falling slightly. Was she really trying to open up this bag of worms with me? Please, you can't help me, Rainshine. I don't need any help. I can help myself just fine on my own, I said as I turned back to my tent, trying to brush her away by trying to get ready. She took a step closer and spoke again with persistence. Adrian, as far as I'm concerned, you are a part of my village now. You've worked and talked and lived with us for quite some time, to the point where I view you as one of my own. And I wouldn't be doing my job as this village's elder if I were to let one of my own hurt themselves. Hearing those words, I spun around in anger and spoke out with a vicious tone of voice. Well, maybe I don't want to be one of your own, I voiced loudly, taking a step towards her as attempting to cut off this conversation as quickly as possible. I wasn't thinking straight. I just wanted her to go away and let me deal with my own problems myself. I didn't need help, especially not from her. I stared into her eyes, my anger flaring up while my chest seethed with rage. But as I got closer, however, she didn't recoil away from me like I had thought she would. She stood her ground and only turned her head slightly as if she knew I was going to do that. But when I really looked at her, as my anger quickly collapsed in on itself, I could tell that she wasn't moved by my fit of rage, unlike the other Kieran who might have hid from me or run away. It was because of this steadfastness from her that I was able to calm down quickly. Rainshine, I had always felt, was different from the other Kieran here. She wasn't like them in many ways, and I could tell. She had a presence about her that I couldn't really understand. But what I did understand was that she was much stronger than her subjects, and I don't mean physically. I hadn't been around her much, but every time I was near her, or we exchanged some dialogue, I could tell she didn't scare easily. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, I said as I stepped back from her. I looked away from her in shame as she nodded her head in understanding. I know you didn't, Adrian, but that is what I wanted to talk to you about. You've been very brave this past month, and have done a very good job hiding your problems from us, and for that, you have my utmost respect. But lately, it's become clear to Autumn and her friends that something is very wrong with you, she said in an understanding tone. I would close my eyes and nod my head. Yeah, you're correct. Something isn't right, I said as I shift my body to look away from her even more. I really didn't feel comfortable talking about this sort of stuff out in the open. In fact, I didn't like talking about this stuff at all. Not with myself, especially not with others, and especially not with others that don't understand my troubles. But it would be what Rainshine said next that would shatter my selfish behavior. From what I hear, you're dealing with a moderate to severe case of schizophrenia, and possibly even other military-related mental illnesses that could have stemmed from the time you've spent serving your country back on Earth, she said as she took a step towards me. My eyes would open up wide as I slowly turn around back to her. I had never heard a Kieran say such things before, not even from Autumn, and she's the smartest one I knew. What? How do you even know what those things are? And how do you know that I'm suffering from schizophrenia? How could you even gauge what those things are for someone like me? I questioned her quickly as she came closer still so that her height and my height were roughly the same, and that now we didn't need to speak too loudly in the open. I think you might have already guessed or assumed that I have a bit more experience than most Kieran here in Perilous Peaks, and while this may be true, it goes way beyond what you might think. As she spoke, I had remembered back to the first time we met. She correctly guessed that I was a soldier of some sorts, and that I was stationed out of a base, or a fort to be exact. At the time, I did think it was a bit strange, but I never really asked further into it. The truth of the matter is I have indeed in the past dealt with soldiers before. She stood back up slightly, and I was quick to respond to what she had said. What? How? How have you dealt with soldiers before? I say, now looking at her in disbelief. Not because she was more interesting than I first thought, but that maybe she could have possibly, even for a small amount of time, helped me. That I don't believe I am at the liberty to say at the moment, nor do I think it's important at this time. I cut her off. Well, it's important to me, I said, pointing to my chest with both my hands. As I said, it's not important now. One day, and one day hopefully soon, we'll talk about it, she said as I rolled my eyes and sighed. Maybe a day very soon, I asked. Yes, very soon indeed. But until that day comes, I feel obligated, like I said before, to help you. You've done a lot for us, and I think it's time I ask for the sake of the village, give something back to you. A hoof would raise up to my shoulder, and as she looked into my eyes with a more stern look on her face, Please, I insist. I looked into those eyes, with mine almost as if searching for an excuse as not to accept her help. I stared, my mouth slightly agape, with no words leaving them. I wanted to say no. I wanted her to go away and let me deal with my problems on my own. I knew deep down I could fix my issues myself. I knew I could fix my mind and get it working the way it should be again. I knew I could mend the problem spots of my past life and rekindle my sanity. But as I thought about this, the concept of me being able to do it alone just wasn't feasible. I couldn't do it alone. I'm not like some Superman or a video game character that can take on an endless hordes of bad guys and just say, oh well, when the fighting's done. I'm not a one-man army. I'm not perfect. I can't fight this battle alone, or at least, I can't do it alone anymore. So as I closed my eyes and nodded my head, agreeing to accept her help, she came to my side and beckoned me with a sway of her head. Come, I have tea brewing. So everyone, that was the finishing part for this chapter. Once again, sorry that it's been a while. I am so slow at things. But, although, yes, I did also want to take a little bit of time off since, you know, I had told in the post for the people that didn't see is I had my driver's test on the 8th. Which, for anyone wondering, I did pass on the first try. And, it actually really wasn't that hard. But, anyways, thank you to my Patreon donor, Hark Wless, aka Christopher. Thank you for supporting me, man. And, for anyone that has questions about my Patreon, or if they're wondering if there's any other ways that they could talk to me or be involved with the community, I have a Discord, and if you need the help to figure out how to get there, just say in the comments, and I'll help you, man. Or girls. I don't know who watches my videos. Well, except for the few people that I do know. But anyways, stay golden, and I hope you guys, or girls, have a good day.